Way too many costly mistakes. That's what it comes down to.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making this your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below because, as you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. Today's episode is all about reacting to the first loss of the season for Louisville. 30-27 in overtime. Jeff Brohm's team moves to 4-1 on the year. Too many costly mistakes. That's what it boils down to. That's what prevented the victory. We will discuss the inconsistency, the same old offensive struggles reoccurring, the coaching mistakes, the play calling issues, and of course, discussing this team's identity through basically the first half of the season. So we have a lot of stuff to get into. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today to get started. Louisville Cardinals lose in overtime 30-27 to number 24 Virginia on Saturday. First loss of the season for the Cardinals. They moved to 4-1. And this was one of the more frustrating losses that I've witnessed from this program in the past decade. And yes, I don't think that is hyperbolic whatsoever. It was extremely frustrating. Now, I don't want to sound like sour grapes. And this is one of my largest pet peeves as a sports fan is when my team wins a game and the opposing fan base pulls up, well, you didn't win the game. We lost the game. You hear it all the time. It's a coping mechanism. So, and of course, I think at times that is the case. Context matters, but not as much as opposing fans want to pull that card. So credit to Virginia. They won the game, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I think that Louisville was the more talented team. I don't know that I can agree with some of the Cardinals fan base that they were a better team because better teams don't consistently hurt themselves that much. They don't make the same mistakes, unforced mistakes, I might add. They don't, they don't lose in that regard more often than not. So don't know that I can agree that Louisville was the better team. I think that they were the more talented team, but the games aren't played on paper. They're played on grass. So you still have to go out there and execute. Virginia made plays when they needed to, especially in overtime. They capitalized when Louisville gave them the football. And they played a relatively clean game outside of the penalties. They had 7 for 68. They didn't turn the ball over. And that way they played a clean game. So they didn't hurt themselves. It wasn't a spectacular performance from Tony Elliott's squad, but I think that they handled business and they played a relatively clean game. And sometimes that is the difference between winning and losing a game. I think that this Virginia team is a solid team. It's much better than the teams we saw over the past couple of years. So credit to Virginia. They won the game, so hats off there. No sour grapes for me. What I will say is I do believe that Louisville was the more talented team. They outgained Virginia by 146 yards. That is according to Kelly Dickey on Twitter at Real Card Game, renowned Louisville statistician. Louisville outgained Virginia by 146 yards, its largest margin of total offense, and a loss since outgaining Connecticut by 160 yards in a 23-20 triple overtime loss on November 24, 2012. And then you also look at the analytics side, and from Bill Connolly of ESPN, lowest post-game win expectancy in a win, week 6, an analytical metric, UVA, 10.1%. It is the lowest post-game win expectancy in a win to start the season through the first 6 weeks, according to that metric. So, again, don't want to sound like sour grapes, but I'm pointing out that fact because the mistakes clearly, or I won't say clearly, they ultimately lost Louisville this game. Now, I understand Virginia had their own things that they were dealing with. Injuries to the offensive line. A player got hurt and had to get carted off on the first drive of the game. And we do hope that that player has a quick and full recovery. But this seemed like a classic Louisville continually hurt themselves over and over and over. Virginia won the game. That's all that matters. But you look at this game for the Cardinals and the mistakes, completely frustrating because they were completely unforced. First drive of the game, 4th and 1. You run a halfback pitch, and I have some problems with that play call, and we'll discuss that in the final segment. But you run a halfback pitch, and whether you want to blame Isaac Brown or Miller Moss or both and Jeff Brohm, it's the wrong call there on 4th and 1, and there's a fumble, and the Virginia defender has no one in front of him, picks the ball up and runs it back in for a touchdown. And right there, you lose any opportunity to gain momentum to start the game. Now, the Cardinals ended up making up for it. They tied the game on the next possession, and they ended up bending but not breaking defensively. And then the end of the first half, a botched hold and a field goal attempt goes wide left. It's not even close, and it prevents you from going into the half with the lead. Second half, and this is where I think one of the most frustrating and unbelievable plays happened in this game. Now, the Cardinals, it's worth noting, they only had one lead in this game, and it was because they got the ball first in overtime. But the game was tied going into the second half. Louisville got the ball to start the third quarter. They weren't really able to move the football in that third period. But you go to the third quarter, you have to punt the ball. Virginia gets the ball back with really good field position, and you force them to go turnover on downs. Like, you force them to go for it on 4th down, and they don't get it. The next possession, Miller Moss is about to get sacked. Louisville's offensive line wasn't that great. About to get sacked, and he's going to the ground, and he throws the ball. Going to the ground, throws the ball, trying to get yards, throws it right to the Virginia defender, who then runs it in for a pick six. I don't care. There's nothing that you can say. Nothing that you can say that would justify that throw at all. It's 1,000% inexcusable, and in some cases, it is a benchable play. You can't justify it. It's terrible. Jeff Brohm was, of course, very upset with that play. When you look at the sideline, he couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it in the stands. Miller Moss, I don't care if you're a freshman or the veteran that he is, you cannot make the play. Take the sack. It's not optimal. Take the sack, play field position, punt the ball away, and make the Virginia offense, who hadn't done anything really outside of the very first drive. I'm sorry. Yeah, there was that one drive that they scored. I apologize. It wasn't the very first drive. I think it was one of the earlier drives in the first half where they end up going down the field, converting multiple 3rd and 4th downs, and going in and scoring on a 3rd and 11 touchdown pass where Chandler Morris had a beautiful throw down the right side of the field. But anyway, you can't make that mistake, because then you give Virginia the lead once again. And it's just like those two plays are why you lost the game. You took the game to overtime. You were trailing by 10. It was a nice comeback to tie the game. But then, you look at it, that's 14 points that you gift wrapped Virginia. You outgained the Cavaliers by almost 150 yards. Virginia didn't do anything spectacular, but they didn't beat themselves, and they won the game. Sometimes that's all it takes. Now, here's the thing about this. I don't want to overreact. I want to have justified criticism, but I don't want to let the heat of the moment cause me to overreact. Jeff Brohm is a better coach than Scott Satterfield. We know that. Jeff Brom's not a bad head coach. We know that. He's had a ton of success over the first couple of seasons. But this loss on Saturday reminded me of a Scott Satterfield loss when he was at Louisville. What did Cardinals fans complain about when Scott Satterfield was here? That the Cardinals would dominate the yardage, they would move the football, but they would end up losing games because the small mistakes would add up and you would lose the game in the margins. It was the most frustrating thing about that Scott Satterfield era at Louisville. And on Saturday, watching that game unfold and watching Louisville lose that game, it reminded me of a 2020-2021 loss. I'm just being honest. It was very reminiscent of one of those types of losses. Now, I'm not trying to compare those tenures whatsoever. Please understand that. But it was a loss that was frustrating because you lost in the same way that you did back in 2020, 2021. And some of the same issues have been popping up over the past couple of weeks. The only difference is you had too many mistakes on Saturday and prevented yourself from winning, unlike the game against James Madison, unlike the game against Pittsburgh. Inconsistency has been the main issue. It's been the main umbrella, right? I mean, of course, there are a couple of other things that are happening underneath the surface, but I think the root of the problem is inconsistency. And this team's identity, unfortunately, I think is rooted in that inconsistency. And we'll discuss more when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designated to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performances. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Coordination, I want to take the time to thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the show is free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube. 5 days a week, your team every day. Be sure to give us a follow on TikTok now as well. Some of the highlights from episodes will be posted on the Locked On Louisville TikTok page. But after the game on Saturday, well, actually during it, I tweeted out something suggesting that here we are, 5 games in the season, and I feel like we still have more questions than answers with this team. And somebody tweeted this that made me kind of contemplate the question more. And I woke up Sunday morning kind of agreeing with that tweet, or whatever you want to call a post on the X platform now. It's always going to be Twitter to me. But anyways, I went from thinking that there were more questions than answers to, well, we might have the answers. We just don't like what those answers are telling us. Now, defensively, I don't really have many issues. Ron English has been really solid in the first 5 games of the year. The Cardinals defense, yeah, they're giving up big plays here and there, but they're bending and not breaking, and they are bailing out this offense. I mean, it's not easy when your offense isn't giving you much at solid intervals of the game, where you're having to consistently be almost perfect. Like when it's such a lopsided performance where your defense had so much pressure, I mean, I feel like it's not fair to the defense. And that's such a 180 from the offseason discussion, because myself included, many people, myself included, thought that Ron English shouldn't have been brought back for his 3rd season. But he has silenced those criticisms. I gave him credit last week for a job well done through the first 1/3 of the season. And against Virginia, now I think that there were plays where Virginia kind of helped Louisville out. Chandler Morris could have scrambled for some first downs, and he just didn't. He had a pass. There was one pass to Jamari Taylor, who would have had plenty of room to run. He dropped a 3rd down pass and got off the field. So I think Virginia helped out Louisville a little bit, but the Cardinals did what they needed to do. They took an opportunity against a top 10 offense, and they held them to 230 yards, 237 yards. I mean, it was a good performance from the Cardinals defense. They bent, but didn't break. Yeah, they had some situations where they didn't play particularly well, especially on that touchdown drive. But I mean, they didn't give up a single offensive score or a single offensive touchdown in the second half. And the one field goal that they gave up in the second half was because they Virginia started inside of Louisville territory. Most of the criticism is directed at the offense. And this is where like the Cardinals' identity comes into play, is like it goes back to that old saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And unfortunately, we have spent the first couple weeks of the season wondering, okay, when is this offense going to turn things around? When is this offense going to be able to score more points? When is this offense going to stop creating the same issues and turning the ball over at such a high rate? When? When is it going to happen? Here we are, almost 50% through the regular season. The Miami game will be the official halfway point, but we have a good enough sample size. We're 5 games into the season. Louisville's offense had 383 total yards yesterday. They've been able to move the football at times, but inconsistency is the name of the game for this offense. I think that this team's identity on offense is one that has the talent to compete with anyone on their schedule. Now, offensive line play, you have to kind of combat that, but you've got the skill position guys. I mean, Chris Bell, NFL wide receiver. Colin Lacey, explosive playmaker. Miller Moss has the talent to make big-time plays. Of course, injuries have affected this team, especially to the running backs room. Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Kejuan Brown, they've had their fair share of injuries. Like, they are not even close to being 100%. But still, I mean, you look at this and Isaac Brown dropping some passes, struggling in pass pro. Duke Watson has struggled to stay healthy, and I just hate it for him because you can tell he's doing his very best to stay on the field, but he just keeps getting hurt because you have that ankle injury, and it's something that can stick with you for a while. And I show a ton of respect for him trying to play through it, but man, it sucks watching him hobble off the field at some point every game. And of course, it's not his fault. Don't make that out to be what I'm saying, but it just sucks to see. This offense has so much talent. And this is a coaching staff that is known historically to be one to get the most out of their offense. But it's not happening because the same issues keep happening. The offensive line, we know who they are at this point. They've had enough time to gel. It's just it's a subpar offensive line. There's no other way to put it. No other way to put it. The Miller Moss experience, I mean, it's inconsistent. And I'll talk a little bit more about him in the next segment. We'll break it down a little bit more, but Miller Moss does some really great things, and then he follows it up by doing some things where you're like, man, you just can't do that. Like, there's no excuse for it. So that roller coaster has been happening every single game. You don't have a rushing attack. At this point, yes, maybe that's something that changes. Maybe your offensive line is able to do some things better. Their run blocking grade as a unit was 53.2 according to PFF yesterday or Saturday. Not good. I think that at times Louisville was able to get some decent runs, but not enough to be able to set the tone. Of course, Jeff Brohm didn't have the confidence enough in the rushing attack because, I mean, Miller Moss still threw the ball 48 times against Virginia. 1 week later from his over 50 passing attempts performance. So I think I've transitioned from wondering when this offense was going to put it together to just kind of coming to the realization of this is who the Cardinals offense is. It is a very talented unit that is kind of hamstrung a little bit by offensive line play that is also being held back by quarterback play, and it's being held back by not being able to run the football. It's being held back by play calling at times. I mean, I feel like a broken record because we talk about the same things every week, but we see the same things every week. So, again, I don't want to be too awfully critical, but this team should be 5-0. They are not 5-0. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, or shoulda, coulda, woulda. This team should be 5-0. And they're not, because the offense once again defeated themselves. They didn't put up points. It was frustrating to Jeff Brohm. He even mentioned it in the post-game press conference. It's, of course, frustrating to the fans, and we're seeing the same things over and over on offense. So let's take a little bit of a more analytical dive into the offensive struggles. We'll do that when we come back and discuss some of the issues with the play calling. Don't go anywhere. You're Locked On Louisville 5 days a week, covering your team every day. One thing doesn't change throughout the game days in the fall, and that is that I have a weekly routine. Every Saturday morning before I go to Cardinal Stadium or before I watch the Louisville Cardinals, I always go get my morning coffee from a couple different local spots. I'm a huge fan of neighborhood spots because I believe that investing in local businesses is like investing in the community, because when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And look, when we show up as a community, it can mean big business for local business owners. Money spent in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million of these neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. Square. You'll be happy you did. See you in the neighborhood. Also, before we get into the next segment, let's tell you about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, FanDuel. The Cardinals did not cover the FanDuel spread yesterday. They lost the game, so of course they didn't cover the spread. Louisville currently is 1-4 against the spread this season. Not great. You can check out all of the different spreads every single week over at FanDuel. And if you're new, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Whether it's college football, whether it's NFL, and now NBA and college basketball are just around the corner. And you best believe I'm going to stay with using FanDuel to be able to check out all those great odds. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. With it being a bye week, there is a good chance that there will only be 4 episodes of the Locked On Louisville podcast this week. Of course, today there will be another Virginia reaction show tomorrow, and there'll be a weekly mailbag at some point in the week, and kind of just depending on what else happens. But we will pick up more football talk when it becomes game week after this week, when the Cardinals will be set to go down to Miami. But let's take a look at the offensive struggles, because like I said, the top of the tree trunk might be labeled inconsistency, but the roots underneath the surface, of course, represent everything else. Offensive line play, lack of a running game. This is going back to the Kelly Dickey tweet that I had bookmarked. Louisville has been held to under 100 yards rushing in back-to-back games for the first time since 2015, a full decade. The Louisville rushing attack, of course, is hindered by the health of the running backs. It's hindered by the offensive line and a couple things. The one-dimensional offense has been a struggle for the Cardinals, because being one-dimensional isn't really something that constitutes a ton of success at the college level. Play calling and coaching at times. Offensive line play, the passing offense had a 67.9 pass blocking grade, and I think it was mainly because of the first half, where Miller Moss looked really good. He was getting the ball out quick, not really getting pressured much, and then Virginia started to bring more pressure, and Louisville's offensive line didn't really know how to combat that, and they ended up bringing a ton of heat to pressure Miller Moss. They sacked him 5 times. They recorded 7 tackles for loss, 8 passes deflected. Just hashtag not good. So offensive line play has not been good. It's been a one-dimensional start to the season for the offense. Play calling has struggled here and there. That's why, like, this Miller Moss experience, it's been so frustrating. All of this is not on Miller Moss. Let's get that out of the way. But there are so many plays that are on Miller Moss. And I saw somebody tweet this out yesterday or on Saturday, and it made a lot of sense. Like, this experience, like Miller, his great moments are, it's the best moments of Tyler Shuck and the worst moments of Jack Plummer. And I think that is a perfect way to describe it. Like, his highs have been really high, but his lows have been unacceptably low. Like, he's making some mistakes that when he gets a little bit rattled, when he loses a little bit of confidence, when he gets pressured here and there, he makes mistakes that you would expect a true freshman starter to make, not a guy that's been in college for as long as he has. Like, he makes a ton of great plays. The first half against Virginia, he looked really good. And it all got wiped away because of that dumb, unacceptable mistake in the third quarter to where he threw it right to the guy when he went to the ground instead of taking the sack. And there were a couple of other plays in the second half where he had ill-advised throws, put the ball in harm's way, should have been an interception. Thankfully, those players are on defense for a reason. And gosh, it's just so frustrating that we're having the same issues. Miller Moss's inconsistency. We're seeing his highest highs and lowest lows every single week. And yes, he's looking good statistically. 329 passing yards, 34 of 48 passing, 2 touchdowns. Like, he's had some really good plays, but my gosh, he's had some other plays where I'm like, throw the ball away. Don't put the ball in harm's way. Understand when to take risks. It's hurt Louisville. Thankfully, the Cardinals have been able to overcome it. Thankfully, Miller has been able to overcome it. But on Saturday, you just weren't able to overcome it. And that's kind of the flip side of why Louisville playing like they have through the first couple of weeks has been an issue. We will discuss this more on tomorrow's show. Coaching and play calling. I don't think that Jeff Brohm is a bad head coach. I will say it all the time. I think that they have succeeded through the first couple of seasons, but I also think that there have been games that coaching has prevented Louisville from reaching even higher heights. The game against SMU last year, Louisville was unprepared for that high-profile offense, that up-tempo offense. Game against Stanford. Game against Pittsburgh in 2023. To a lesser extent, coaching in 2023. 2024, you saw some areas where coaching prevented you from winning more games. I think coaching was one of the main reasons why you lost this game. 4th and 1. You just converted a third down where Miller Moss ran up the middle. Tush push. You got the first down. 4th and 1 near midfield. You got cute. You tried to run a halfback toss. Now, it wasn't executed well. Maybe the idea gets looked at. But look, I understand coaching is one of those things where a coach is going to get scrutinized if a play or gamble doesn't pay off, and he's going to get celebrated when it does. But it would be different if this was just like a one-time thing. Situational short yardage play calling has been an issue dating back to last year. Jeff Brohm even had to address it at some points last year. You got cute on 4th down, and it ultimately costed you in a huge way. End of the first half, you have an opportunity to go down the field and take the lead. You opt to take a mid-40-yard field goal, and you miss it, but you had enough time to go down the field. Like, clock management at the end of the half once again was a problem. Why are you – it's almost like you're playing for a field goal at the end of the first half. Like, why is that the thing? You have an opportunity to move down the field. You had an opportunity to use the timeout, and you don't do it. It's just frustrating to see at the end of the first half. You could have gone into the half maybe up 7. If it's a closer field goal, I don't understand that the hold was bad, but if it was a closer field goal, maybe things change. But it doesn't. You leave points on the board. And then in the second half, Chris Bell, great in the first half, over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. You don't target him until later in the third quarter. It's like the last drive of the third quarter. Now, granted, Virginia tried to take him out of the game, right? Force Miller Moss to go elsewhere, but it's just the same old mistakes. Fourth quarter. I mean, you take the timeout where if UVA ends up getting that first down, the game's basically over. Now, you do end up getting off the field. Overtime, 3rd and 2. I understand running the ball has been difficult with the offensive line, but 3rd and 2, scramble out to the left, and you're throwing across the body to Isaac Brown. Now, of course, are these play calls being executed the way that they were designed? That's a different question, a different conversation, but you see the differences. 3rd and 2, Louisville scrambles out to the left, throws it to Isaac Brown, then they kick the field goal. Personally, for me, I would have been more aggressive on 4th and 2 because Virginia, in 4 plays, won the game. 3rd and 2, they ran the football. These small coaching decisions add up. Not to mention, I think it's just frustrating. Another thing is with the play action, Miller Moss taking the snap under center and faking the handoff to the running back to where his back is to the defense. And how many times did you see it? Fake the handoff, he turns around and boom, there's somebody right there to where he's not able to make a play. Personally, for me, again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know more than Jeff Brohm. But I think that what would be more successful is if the play action happens in the shotgun to where Miller Moss is still scanning the field to where he can go through his reads. Okay, what is the safety doing in center field? Like what's happening with the coverage to where making life easier for Miller Moss, offensive line, these long developing plays just aren't working because he's not getting enough time to throw the football. And you say, well, Jeff Brohm can't help what his offensive line is doing. I mean, he's the one that brought this offensive line in. So roster construction is on Jeff Brohm. Again, I know that I'm being pretty critical, but you kind of have to after a loss like this. I still think Jeff Brohm is a good coach. I think that keeping things simple at times might lead to more success in terms of play calling. So, I mean, play calling is one of those things where, yeah, the team's identity might be what it is from a talent standpoint, but you can tweak play calling to put your offense in better situations. And I trust Jeff Brohm to do that. I understand those that are out there and saying that, well, I've got to see more from Jeff Brohm. I personally trust him a little bit more than that. But still, I think he's a good coach. But this, I don't think, was his greatest showing. And it's critical. I get it. One thing I said on this show is that we're not going to be sunshine pumpers. We're not going to be Debbie Downers. We're going to give credit where credit's due. We're going to talk about things when they aren't as good. So hopefully they use this bye week as motivation. You get hit in the mouth. You take a very, I'll say, devastating and disastrous loss. Jeff Brohm said, you got to let it sting because if it doesn't, why are you even playing? Jeff Brohm said it. Hey, he coughed up 14 points. This loss is on me. But now it's like, how are you going to turn the page? Because you have a bye week. Then you got to go down to Miami, who they're the number 1 team in the country. I don't care what anybody says. They are the top team in the country right now. So when we come back tomorrow, we'll discuss things a little bit further. We'll talk about Miller Moss. We'll talk about the Cardinals defense. We will discuss what this loss does and what it means for the rest of the season. But that's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.